In the meantime, I'd like each group to stand up. I understand we have the Friends of Grossfeld here. You stand up and be recognized. Muriel Grossfeld's the Olympic star, and probably one of the most interesting people to ever not come out of Milford, but wind up in Milford. As many of you know, she ran a gymnasium on Orange Avenue, where the rehabilitation center is today, a place many of us will wind up in.
Actually, she wound up there.
She wound up there as well.
Ironic.
So a local circle. She grew up in my favorite place, Speedway, Indiana, home of the Indianapolis 500. When I was going to law school, there were a number of people who wanted us to defend the Indianapolis 500. Not entirely sure what that meant. We have the Patton family. For Jerry Patton, if you stand and be recognized. 2 daughters and several in-laws, is that right? I'm sorry, a son and daughter and several in-laws.
Yes.
Jerry is the founder of the Milford Hall of Fame. He was a longtime Rotarian and a representative in the city state government. A representative for what, 3 terms or 2?
5.
5 terms. So 3 and 2. Yes. That was actually a math question.
We passed.
He did a wonderful job there. I knew him for many, many years. As a Rotarian, he did 2 things that really kind of impacted the history of Milford. One is the Milford Memories, where various staffers in that committee, and mostly Jerry, went around and interviewed Milford's old people. The ones who aren't dead yet are here today. So we had wonderful things and wonderful tales about the harbor, downtown, education. Ruth Platt was an interviewee. She died at 104, a longtime school teacher back in the last century. In total, I think we had 53 different interviews. All of that will be going online at some point in time, and look forward to that. So Jerry was involved in that, and of course the founding Milford Hall of Fame. One of the most remarkable accomplishments of any politician in the history of Milford is he managed to get 7 former mayors together, a bit like herding cats, and get this thing established. So kudos to Jerry. He'll be memorialized forever. We have Victor Loosanoff. Make sure I said Loosanoff, but it's Loosanoff, right? Loosanoff. Okay. They get the pronunciation right and the spelling. We have people from NOAA. Victor was, if you stand, Victor was essentially more or less a founder. I believe it existed shortly before him, but he made it what it was. You can read the article about it, wonderfully written by Bill McDonald. Probably is responsible for more articles, he and staff, than anybody on the planet on shellfish in the industry. Yeah, not articles in general. All things considered, Subway's Deluca may be the most successful person ever to be involved in Milford, with one exception. Forbes listed him as worth $3.5 billion at the time he passed away, which I think he did in Florida to avoid taxes. Smart man, very smart man. Sheriff Slavin was a personal surprise to me. I wrote the article on Slavin, and I want to thank Ken Fellenbaum, who, when we had our meeting to choose this year's candidates, suggested him. He's one of the most remarkable people to ever be associated with Milford. You probably know he's the founder of Boys Village. He is also very involved in young people's rehabilitation and avoidance of crime. It's kind of uncommon for someone to be a screenwriter and local high sheriff. Slavin was. He wrote First Offenders as a screenplay, which became a big movie that premiered right here in New Haven. He also formed the First Offenders Club, which literally thousands and thousands of young people joined, mostly boys, and comic books to support the anti-crime message that he had. And a third remarkable accomplishment, and probably a predecessor to the Scared Straight program we have today, was the Jail on Wheels. There is a picture of the Jail on Wheels in the booklet that traveled all across the country and earned a great deal of money, 25 cents a pop for the adults and free for children. So much so that he came back and paid off the debt that existed for Boys Village. So a remarkable Democrat, my favorite Democrat ever, and an amazing individual.
I'm proud to say I had associations with 3 of these 5 people. So we got more contemporary in our history, but some marvelous history, and I've always been a history buff. All my life, grew up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, original settlers there, my family. But Milford was back 100 years before that. So first, Sheriff Slavin, he got himself elected sheriff, and his campaign strategy was he went to every wake there was, all over the New Haven area. And this Jail on Wheels was really helped him get elected the president of the National Sheriff's Association. So one of my favorite stories about that is when I was at the village, the last person that Sheriff Slavin swore in came there to serve papers for one of the staff to testify in some court case. And he told me this story. He said, when T.J. Casey was state representative here, one of his constituents called and said, listen, my son was coming back from spring break in Florida and got through some speed trap in Alabama or somewhere. And of course, they had spent all their money on spring break, so they had no money. And he called up and said, so the guy looked into the book of sheriffs, because Sheriff Slavin was the president, called the local sheriff down there. 20 minutes later, the kids were on the way. So it's good to know somebody. Jerry, I remember your dad, and because he used to be his campaign manager, conceiving this idea of the Hall of Fame, and the first one to get started, and it was just a great love, so it's great that we're honoring him, his love of Milford. And one last story about Fred Deluca. I was famous for getting some of the biggest contributions out of Fred that anybody ever got, because I had the gift of asking. And I discovered over the years that most people don't like to say no, so if you ask them, they might give. But Fred was when he would travel, he was very tight-fisted about things, and the most singularly focused person I ever met in my life. He wanted to make Subway the #1 franchise. So when we were at the village, I was looking to raise money. I come up with this idea of a work-study program where we would give the kids a small stipend. It was back in the day, actually it was a farm these kids actually worked there. We had not an operating farm anymore. We just would have kids that would, and I actually had a staff member complain that we were paying children 14, 15, were underage children for working. I said, come on. It's kind of like parents give out a little, whatever. So anyway, Fred came up with, he gave us $25,000 to get this program started. That was unheard of. Somebody got $25,000 out of Fred. So he showed up, you see this picture of him raking leaves with the kids. And then afterwards, we go over to the hall, and he brought sandwiches that day. So then he was given his rags to riches story about how he used to have a paper route, he collected bottles and all this, and then how he got the first Subway thing going. So one of the kids said to him, Mr. Deluca, how much money did you make last year? And I thought, this is going to be interesting. Fred said, last year I made more than $10,000. Now to a kid, that was a lot of money. And they went, wow. And I said, good, you want to satisfy, when kids ask something to satisfy them, he made $60 million that year.
Well, I'm the person who got $25,000 from him. Yeah. I went to talk to him over the Boy Scouts. I got $25.
I also got one when we built a greenhouse, $5,000, and when he showed up, said, he really runs it. He wanted the surplus lettuce and tomatoes that we had.
George or group, you want to say anything about Muriel?
No, she was just an unusual person, totally dedicated to her sport. And we were just saying, when Michael was talking to his daughter, she said, Muriel took me out on that deck, and I was only 3 years old, and started running her through her paces.
Yeah. And now my granddaughter's 3 years old, so it just gives you an idea.
That's what.
First of all, we're pleased to have Victor recognized in this group because, as you noted, he's recognized worldwide for his expertise in shellfish research. And our current research vessel at the lab is named after Victor. So that's an interesting tie-in. And it's also interesting, we are having an open house at the lab on Saturday the 30th from 9 to 2. So we're open to the public. There's some flyers on the table. And again, an opportunity for anyone from the Milford community to come and see the lab, see what we do, and see Victor's legacy. And interestingly enough, our former research vessel was named after Shang Wheeler, another Hall of Famer here.
Thank you so much. I dropped off some invitations at NOAA and was very impressed with the tank in the lobby, obviously designed for young people.
We hope to have a bunch of young people and their families at the lab on the 30th, so anyone, please feel free to come by and spread the word.
Thank you so much.
Shang Wheeler used to hang around the oyster works off Gulf Street,
Yeah?
whittling his
Yeah?
decoys.
You have one of those decoys?
No, but I would love to have one. Thousands of dollars now.
Yeah, the condos right across across the harbor from you was Milford's Oyster Landing.
Yeah.
It was you had shellfish piled so high that people could take it, grind it up, and use it for driveways.
Yeah.
So that was quite some time. The Patton family, Carrie or.
Yeah, I just thank you guys. I mean, this is a great thing for Dad. Bill, you wrote a great bio.
Thank you.
We really appreciate that. Dad did an awful lot in his life. I think, late in his life, he started the Milford Memories and then the Hall of Fame. He was able to travel a lot, especially the second half of his life, and saw history in famous places, famous people everywhere he went. And I think he came back home and said, I come from a place with a really rich history too. So let's try to record some of it. The Milford Memories just recorded, the oral testimony history of people. And then the Hall of Fame, he got a lot of people, it wasn't just him, the mayors, Joe, Bill, Rich, Dick, everybody just was part of this. So Dad was really proud of what he did here, and we're proud of Dad, so just thank you.
Jerry was a genuinely nice
A
guy.
lot of what Jerry Patton did, as far as Milford history is concerned, is on tape in the Milford Library. When he took me around to all the historic markers in Milford and had me talk about them.
Oh, that's a nice trick. As I drag you around, you talk about things?
Yeah, drag me around.
Thank you, Dick. Dick is a living legend in Milford, and we're all very proud of him. He's my second favorite cousin behind Joel Baldwin.
Didn't Jerry start or have the idea of starting a book about law that you go in and check your cases?
Yeah, he did. Jerry did some things about kind of a self-help on law issues, but that ran afoul of the Bar Association. But God bless us.
I know that was the first idea on that, and after that books came out, other people followed up on that.
Sure.
But Jerry was the first.
That was George. This is George Ward speaking, and then thank you, George. I think that episode is probably the one Jerry wants to forget the most. But,
Do it yourself law.
But yeah, he was quite a guy, and he went his own way in a lot of ways. And that's I think a heritage of old Yankee Milford.